There's a little bit of wind this morning, and normally in the higher elevation areas it's not particularly windy in the morning. It's pretty normal down in the main canyon to have a lot of wind, but weather forecast today calls for pretty windy conditions, blue skies, and then tomorrow things are going to change up a little bit, and there's a 50% chance of rain with thunderstorms. So the areas where I am right now would be kind of off limits because I'm in a very large drainage area and I wouldn't want to be wandering around if there's any chance of rain. But this morning I'm on a little bit of a different mission. So every single time I come here to Zion, I always find mountain lion tracks, which I'm kind of fascinated by those animals because they are the top predator here, but you never really see them. So this morning I'm going to head to kind of a remote side canyon where I've seen their tracks in the past and set up a game camera, kind of hook it to a tree and see if I can get them on camera. I'll leave it there for a few days and then check up on it and maybe move it around a little bit. But I'm really fascinated by them, and I think it'd be pretty cool to see these animals that leave the tracks that I find all the time. And for those of you that aren't familiar with them, they're pretty big cats. Think of like the biggest dog you can think of, and they're about that size. So we'll see if I can get any of them on camera. So I went ahead and attached the game camera to this root here, which is about 3 feet off the ground. And I came to this wash, and there are actually some tracks leading up the wash over here. I don't know if they're mountain lions though, because they're pretty small. But in any case, this is a kind of a super highway for animals that access a very large canyon back behind here. And it kind of ties them into the main part of the wash back over here. So if anything walks through here, there's a motion sensor on the camera. It has a night vision mode where it has a infrared light source that is not detectable by wildlife. And hopefully I'll be able to catch something. So I'm gonna leave this here for a few days. Mountain lions are nocturnal animals, and which is one of the reasons why I don't like heading down into these washes when it's, after sunset or before sunrise, because that's when they're out and they're ambush predators. And I'd prefer not to be ambushed by a predator. But we'll see how this works out. It's kind of cool to see the tracks here, and I'm hoping this camera's gonna pick up something. So now that I have the game camera placed, it means I can spend a good chunk of the day just kind of wandering around and continuing to check out some areas. Since I'm here a little earlier this season, I get to see fall color in some of the higher elevation areas. And there's all kinds of washes I've never really explored before because when I've been here in the past, the color was already gone. So it's pretty exciting. The wind is picking up a little bit right now. And I know that that's going to continue to build throughout the day. So it'd be really awesome if I can find something to point my camera at today before the clouds and the wind build in. But I am loving this. So calm, so peaceful. I love this. So I moved to a different area now, and I was scouting around for a little while without my pack, because I saw some pretty cool trees. And I found a scene which is kind of interesting. It kind of ties into the storytelling aspect that I've been trying to do a little bit more with my photography. I mean, you got some really cool trees like this one behind me, but the color is so strong that if you fill the frame with it, this is like this maple clown vomit. I mean, it's beautiful, but I don't think people would believe it's even real. So I've been trying to find subjects that have something kind of more neutral, like something to kind of ground the color a little bit. And also something that kind of works on the storytelling aspect. So I found a pretty cool scene. It's got this giant boulder that's kind of cracked, and then these oak leaves kind of surrounding it. So I'm heading over there right now, and I'm gonna see if I can get composition on it. It's gonna be pretty chaotic. So this right here is a scene that I found. You got this really cool boulder that is just kind of cracked in half, and then you got this grove of oak trees and maple trees growing out behind it. And I went ahead and made an exposure on Velvia 50 as well as on Ektar 100. I just waited for a little bit of a break in the breeze, and hopefully I got something without too much leaf movement. I did end up wasting quite a bit of film though. There was a couple shots of Velvia 50 where my meter was set to 100 from shooting some Ektar yesterday. And so those will be one stop underexposed, which will make it pretty useless. So I had to reshoot those with the proper meter setting. And also when I put a film holder for some Ektar 100 inside my camera, it wasn't seated properly. And so it was gonna have all kinds of crazy, horrible light leaks. So I might as well just pull that sheet of film out and just toss it. But I did end up getting some pretty good conditions, which is nice. I think this will be kind of interesting composition. The light's okay. I mean, it's not like a super strong reflected light, but it's a decent light. So I think it's time to get things packed up and then head back to my truck. I gotta load some film and then see if I can find something else to shoot this afternoon. But feels pretty good to get some film exposed today. See what else I could find. I'm constantly amazed by how many great subjects are just kind of hidden in plain sight. I mean, that big boulder was kind of a good example of that. Walked right past it, didn't really notice it, then took time to kind of look around and it really stood out to me. So I think it just pays just to wander around and stay curious about things and find some pretty cool stuff. While I was wandering around, I found kind of a cool little area here. You got all these sort of mud ripples and some rocks and some cracked mud and some other stuff. So, and there's also some really good reflected light. So I figured I would see if I can try to find a composition here, but this has been a challenge. There's a lot of really good elements here, but trying to find a way to sort of put order to the chaos has proven to be the difficult part. So what I ended up doing is I did a horizontal composition using my normal lens. And then this area right here has a slightly kind of curved shape to it. I have it at the extreme bottom of the composition. And then just a lot of kind of open space up top with that nice wall there. So I really don't know what to expect. I might look at it and just hate it, but it kind of falls in the category of a slightly experimental sort of shot. And I do see how it could have potentially kind of a Zen-like sort of a calm feeling to it, but it could also just look like some dirty rocks, so we'll see how that works out. But down around the corner, maybe about a half mile away, I found a really cool scene with this maple tree and the wash and some foreground sandstone. And I think it'll be a really challenge to find a composition on it, but there's probably something there. So my goal is to head over there. I'm really just kind of killing time right now, but I'll head over there, see if I can get a composition on it, because that'd be kind of a late afternoon shot. But if that doesn't work, I got a backup plan. So get my camera packed up and head down canyon and see if I can get a composition on that one maple shot. So it is now the late afternoon, and I kind of wandered down the wash, and I finally arrived at the area I kind of mentioned earlier that has these really beautiful maples. And I was trying to find some way to photograph this wonderful color, and I finally found something that works pretty well. So if you look over my shoulder there, you'll see that there is this really cool branch with this yellows and greens, but there's one red leaf there. And it kind of reminds me of some of the intimate landscapes I've shot where I'll place a red leaf on some really nice kind of like dried mud or sand or stuff like that. But in this case, that leaf was placed there for me, so kind of cool that it's growing there. It's a little easier to shoot than stuff on the ground because I have a little better angle to work at it. But the challenging part is going to be the wind, because if there's even the slightest breeze, it's going to shake that whole branch. So I have to wait for a really calm break in the wind. I'm going to shoot it at f/22 to give myself a chance of having a little bit of a shorter exposure time, so hopefully that works out pretty well. And my initial instinct was to center the leaf in the composition, but that proved to be a little difficult to do, mostly because there's going to be some dead spots that just wouldn't have looked quite right. So I ended up finding a composition where I put it on a third, and then that will kind of fill the frame with some good leaves and kind of keep things moving around kind of nice. But I got my fingers crossed that the wind is going to cooperate. It's pretty calm right now, so I should probably get the camera set up and take my photo. All right, this is going to be 2 seconds f/22. I need the wind to be absolutely calm, which it is. There we go. Well, that worked out pretty well. I was able to make 2 exposures on Velvia 50, and the wind was really calm, so that was really nice. There were some times when it was a little breezy, but you waited enough and sure enough things will calm down. Not quite sure what to think about the composition. I think it's one of those ones where when I see the film on the light box, I'll have a immediate feeling either I like the shot or I don't like the shot, but I'm just glad the variables lined up and everything worked out pretty well for it. But now it's time to head back to camp, grab some dinner, and I loaded film earlier today, so guess what I'm not doing tonight. This has been a great day here in Zion. Conditions are just so ideal right now, and I'm just loving every moment of this.
There's an old saying that 2 wrongs don't make a right, but that isn't always true. Remember that missing sheet of Kodak Ektar from yesterday? Well, I later found out what happened. I made a sloppy mistake this morning and inserted that same film holder into my camera while photographing the cracked boulder, thus double exposing that sheet of film. Thankfully, I made a second mistake that helped resolve the problem. After taking the photo of the cracked boulder, I noticed the film holder wasn't properly seated in the camera, resulting in a massive light leak. I discarded that sheet of film, then inserted a new film holder and exposed a fresh sheet of film. Instead of losing 2 photos, I only lost 1, and I'm really happy with how that photo turned out. There's a bit of wind movement in the trees, but I think it works well for this scene. The wind-blown leaves and the cracked boulder both depict the passage of time, though on 2 entirely different scales. This is a photo that has a story to tell, and I'm glad it wasn't lost to a simple mistake. The photo of the stone set against the canyon wall, it turned out okay, and maybe it's a sort of photo that'll grow with me in time, but to be honest, it's not quite what I was hoping for. The same is true for the photo of the low-growing maple branch. Though I like the red leaf, I'm not in love with the composition, and to be honest, the perspective, it's a little bit awkward. Nonetheless, it was a really fun photo to shoot, and I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. I returned to camp with a sense of satisfaction and look forward to the change of weather that was on the way.
If you enjoyed this ad-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution of just $24 a year helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. For more information on how to support me and my work, please visit the donation section of my website at benhorn.com/donate. I also have prints available on my website. You can find a direct link down below in the show notes. Thanks in advance for your support.